Thank you, and thank you everyone for your patience. My name is Tracy Orrick. I'm the social services specialist here at Elmhurst Library. Thank you. It's so nice to see people in person. We're still doing virtual, so we have some people at home joining us too, but it is nice to see faces again. I have a few intro things I have to get off my chest, and then a couple announcements on upcoming programs, and we'll turn it over to Olivia, who is here from Green Door Therapy. They offered to come and present a really good program on anxiety and worry, which who doesn't have that, right?
Right.
Okay, so here we go. Tonight, we're using a hybrid format. That means we have attendees viewing both in person and online. If you are watching from home, know that we are using the webinar format. That means you can see and hear us, but we cannot see or hear you. We will have a question and answer segment at the end of the presentation. And if you're watching on Zoom, you can submit your questions at any time by entering them into the Q&A, which is at the bottom of your toolbar there on Zoom. It looks like two speech bubbles. And if you don't see that button, click on More or the button with the three dots. For those of you in person with us, just please hold your questions till the end. On Zoom, we've enabled the live transcript option. If you'd like to disable the words at the bottom of your screen, you can click on the closed captioning button. If you not see the button with the CC, click on More or the button with the three dots, then select Hide Subtitles. In the library, we also have our assisted listening system. If you'd like to borrow one of these devices, please ask staff at the back of the room. To turn it on, simply press the power button, then adjust the volume using the up and down. So just let myself or Sue, oh, I didn't introduce Sue. Sue's the technology wizard here helping us. If you do need that, we are in a smaller room. Normally we're in kind of a bigger room, so if you need it, we got it. There's a note in here about a mask, but that's obviously not true anymore. Silence your cell phones and other devices. If you do need to take a call, please step outside of the room to do so. Bathrooms are right out here, kind of diagonally across in case you need to use a restroom during the program. And just obviously, if you leave the room, try to do so quietly without disturbing your neighbors. Common courtesy. That's for the Zoom chat. Okay, that's it. I think I've covered all the rules. All right. A couple things I wanted to tell you about that's happening here at the library coming up though as well. Tomorrow or Thursday, the 24th. So Thursday, we're having our book discussions, Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. If you've read the book and want to sign up for the book discussions, we're having two. If you haven't read the book and you want to attend, check the book out. Come on in. It's a great book. I've read it myself. We're supposed to have an author visit and she canceled, unfortunately, but that's kind of an upcoming book discussion. Also, on the end of the month, on the 31st, we're having someone come in to present on the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act grant. This is how there's a bunch of grant money that came out, federal money, to help people get certifications and trainings and things like CDL, nursing aides, project management. So someone's going to come just and speak about how you could find out if you're eligible for that. So if you or someone you know with COVID, maybe out of work, maybe thinking about switching a job, this is a great program to come on and see what all is available. And then I just wanted to throw one more shameless plug out for our Media Match program. You can find it on the website if you're kind of in a rut and you need a book and you don't know what you want to read. Media Match, you answer a few questions. One of our amazing staff members will get that and we'll pick a few titles for you. We'll either pull them for you and send them down to the drive-up or lobby for you, or just suggest the titles. It's a great program if you're just like, I want to read something new and I'm kind of in a funk. So check out Media Match. I think that's all I have to say. Up here are some stuff, some items from our collection here on anxiety, if you want to peruse this at the end of the program. Also my business cards, and of course our evaluation forms. If you wouldn't mind checking one of those out before you leave it, turn that in just so we know how we did. And without further ado, Olivia is here and she's going to talk about reimagining your relationship with anxiety and worry. I'm done talking.
Thank you so much, Tracy.
You're welcome, Olivia.
Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming out this evening. Tonight's presentation is on reimagining your relationship with anxiety. Like Tracy said, my name is Olivia Houlihan. I am a licensed professional counselor at Green Door Therapy, which is located right here in downtown Elmhurst. So we just thought that this was a really relevant topic, especially given the past couple of years. There's definitely been a spike in anxiety. So, and this is also a topic I feel very passionate working with individuals who struggle with anxiety. So you can, for this presentation, you can kind of expect that the first part is going to be a little bit more informational, and part two is going to be skills-based. That's something I really like doing in my clinical work, is bringing in applicable skills that you can actually try and use to help better manage anxiety. So that's kind of what the presentation is going to look like. And I'll also be talking a little bit about what I mean when I say reimagining the relationship with anxiety. But just to get us started, wanted to share just a little bit about our practice. So we're located right here, like I said, right here in downtown Elmhurst. Our address is 126 North York Street. We're on the second floor. We were co-founded in 2018 by two awesome women, Brooke Madera, Bridget Carragher. We now have actually 9 clinicians on staff, and we typically do individual counseling. We also offer couples counseling, and then we usually are always doing group therapy too. So right now, for example, 2 of our therapists are running groups. Anna Finnegan, she is one of our clinicians, and she's a licensed grief therapist. So Anna is running a group right now on a grief support group. That means 1 time a month. Brisha Kimball is also part of our clinical therapy team, and she is offering a group for Black women. It's a process group. We're always offering different skills, so feel free to check out our website. But I would definitely say that we are passionate about working with people who are navigating life's crossroads, dealing with changes, loss, or feeling stuck. So that's what we love specializing in and helping different members in our community. So I just want to share a little bit about Green Door, but kind of now back to the content of our presentation. Okay, so I thought it might first be helpful if I explained kind of the difference between what fear is and what anxiety is. They are 2 different things. So actually it's helpful if we visualize it like this image with the roller coaster, okay? So like fear is what we experience when we are in the dangerous situation. The bad thing is happening, we are fearful. Whereas anxiety is like that anticipation that we feel. We're expecting the bad thing is going to happen. So when you look at this like image of the roller coaster, here's where anxiety would be on the roller coaster. You're anticipating it's going to be bad, right? Whereas fear is we're in it. Fear is right here to right here. We're in the situation. So what I like, what I notice in working with individuals who do have more anxiety is that we struggle to be compassionate towards our anxiety because it does make life harder. It is uncomfortable. And so this is like when I said reimagining your relationship with anxiety, this is definitely the first point I really lean into with clients. It's like, we got to be kinder towards our anxiety because it is there for a purpose. It's not a dangerous thing. And it's important to be reminded that everybody truly does experience it. It's not dangerous, just feels uncomfortable. And the main point is anxiety is just here to protect you. So I love this visual, and we're going to keep coming back to this visual of like the brain that's wearing a hard hat. That's what anxiety is. It's a brain that's wearing a hard hat. It's just trying to look out for you. I also think, and that's why I say like anxiety as our protector, and that's where we can kind of bring a little bit more compassion to it. Another thing I like circling back to is that anxiety really points us in the direction of what's important to us. It's an indicator. So thinking about, running through your own mind right now, what makes you anxious? It's typically the things that matter most to you in your life, right? Maybe it's something of relationship. Maybe it's the work that you're doing, but it does have value to you. So anxiety actually usually points us to what matters in our life. So that's what I mean when I say it's both a protector and it's an indicator. So I thought it would also be kind of helpful if we explored some cognitive themes, or we call them like cognitive distortions with anxiety and worry. So what can be helpful in recognizing these patterns is then we can stop and be like, well, that's anxiety, right? Like if we start noticing that these things are occurring in our mind. So for example, catastrophizing, it's a huge theme in anxiety. We're going to the worst case scenario. It's the what if questions, right? We're imagining that the bad thing is going to happen. So this is, ruminating about what if this and what if this, trying to almost predict the outcome of the bad thing. Another really big theme with anxiety, and I definitely hear this with my clients, is mind reading, especially with like social anxiety, right? Like we assume what other people are thinking about us. So we're imagining even what the other person thinks of us, when in fact we can't read their mind, right? But anxiety tries filling in those gaps. It likes certainty, which I'm definitely going to get to. Anxiety also loves should statements. I should have this promotion by now. I should be in a relationship. I should have more friendships by now. I should have a closer relationship with my mother, right? So if you start noticing the shoulds in your mind, that's anxiety often. And then also, of course, like the all or nothing thinking. This is a hard one because it takes us to like two different extremes. Anxiety doesn't really do a good job of seeing the gray area. So it's like all good, all bad. And it does put pretty like harsh standards or expectations on ourselves and others. So there's, actually a whole list of cognitive themes that you can find out there, cognitive distortions, if you wanted to explore more. I just picked out a couple that I'm always hearing about in session. And again, why it can be helpful to identify these is because then you kind of know that's the pattern of anxiety. It typically circles around like a lot of common themes, a lot of common thoughts. But something I did want to touch upon is like anxiety tricks us into thinking that worrying is necessary to prevent the bad thing from happening, right? So we think, oh, well, I already imagined all the bad outcomes happening. I would be prepared if it actually did. So that's, it ties hand in hand with the catastrophizing of, I got to envision every bad thing happening so that it prevents the bad thing from happening, or I was so darn prepared for it to happen. But the truth is, like, we can't control the future. We can't. And that's rumination, is when we're worrying incessantly about trying to fix the problem. So what actually would happen is, if we were to solve the problem, is we would be taking action, right? That's very different than rumination. Rumination is just thinking these thoughts over and over. True problem solving takes action. So try not to fall into anxiety's trap, which is telling you, you got to worry about this thing so that we're prepared. It doesn't really work like that. So just something to keep in mind. By no means am I a neuroscientist, and I just wanted to bring in a little bit of the biological component of anxiety. So I'm going to do this in a very basic way. So the way in which but I do think it can be helpful for us to see like where in the brain is anxiety happening. So anxiety, like the brain is organized into kind of two different sections. There's the cognitive brain, which that would be like right here, the frontal cortex, the frontal lobe, and the emotional brain, which is right over here. Okay, so the frontal lobe, that's like, that's what helps us with, executive functioning. That's like our higher up thinking. That's memory and language. Whereas the emotion brain, that's the amygdala right here. So scientists used to think that the amygdala was the sole thing responsible for anxiety. What we've actually kind of discovered is it does play a huge part, absolutely, but no one brain region drives like anxiety on its own. it is that interaction between several brain regions. But like nonetheless, I still think it's kind of interesting to explore parts about the amygdala. So the amygdala is often called the fear center. It's what regulates our emotion, and this is the thing that activates your fight or flight response. So just as, you know, a little bit of a recap, like the fight or flight is a very automatic biological response that we have no control over. It's essentially when we're responding to a threat. That's what happens, like physiologically, your heart beats faster, you're inhaling quicker, your pupils dilate, digestion stops. That's what's happening internally. So we don't get to control that. And this is what the amygdala does. So it is the thing that is, like I said, we don't have to initiate anything from ourselves. Our brain does that automatically when it senses danger, and it signals to our brain to pump all that stress hormone, like cortisol, into your body to fight off the dangerous thing or to flee to safety. So I know that was like a really basic overview of the brain, but again, I just think it's kind of interesting to explore where this is happening. So it's the amygdala, it's the frontal cortex. And a point I often bring up too is the amygdala overrides the frontal cortex, because it's like, if you can kind of think of it like a hierarchy, this part is more, I guess, innate, like it's such an automatic thing. All mammals have this like response, the fight or flight, whereas not all mammals have like a developed like frontal cortex. So the amygdala actually can override the frontal cortex. So we can't really even problem solve with anxiety. So we try and figure out how do we get more fluency between these brain structures so that there is easier connection. Okay. So something I, have kind of tried to like integrate into my work is that, yes, oftentimes we do know what the anxious stimuli is, right? Like we can identify it. Sometimes that's work. Maybe it's your relationship, whatever's going on in the family system. Maybe it's finances, maybe it's health concerns, maybe it was like the pandemic. Sometimes we can identify. And that's, maybe a little bit easier for us to be like, okay, I know what the thing is. Now I want to work to problem solve, to take action here. And this is, these are things that you can process and explore with a therapist. And also, we can't always identify what the cause of anxiety is, what the catalyst is. And this is definitely where I see people getting stuck, is because they're like, I'm feeling this way, I'm having these thoughts, and I don't know why. And so then they end up spiraling, because there has to be a why, right? Well, there isn't always, especially with individuals who are more anxious. We just have like an overactive brain that is firing a lot. So I encourage clients, like, how can we turn our attention to like, how is the anxiety being maintained? So what I mean by that is like, what are we doing that's like allowing anxiety to stick around for longer than it's welcomed, rather than getting stuck on why is it here in the first place? Sometimes we can identify it, right? Like what I was just saying, a couple of points of like, maybe it's work or relationship, but there are other days when we just wake up and it's there and we don't know why. And so that's when we have to kind of shift the focus into, all right, what am I doing to continue fueling anxiety in this moment? So I want to like kind of look at what anxiety loves. And I call this like anxiety pleasing behaviors. This is how we like give anxiety more power, more energy. So rumination, I kind of used that word earlier, but just to describe or explain what that word means, it's, having those thoughts like bouncing around in your mind. It's the constant over and over. The thoughts, you just won't stop. So we're sitting there, we're thinking about the thoughts over and over, you just won't stop. So it's following that rumination. Anxiety loves rumination. Anxiety and worry also love it when we talk about it. It's very vain. It wants us to talk about it. So excessively talking about it, excessively thinking about it, these are all things that it loves, and it's getting more power and it's sticking around longer when we do things. Anxiety also wants reassurance. So it wants you to ask questions from your loved ones to seek reassurance. It wants absolute certainty. That's a huge point that I see and experience with anxiety, is that it wants answers now. It doesn't want the gray area. And that's why it tries filling in the gaps. So yeah, those are some just of the ways in which we accommodate anxiety. And another huge one, of course, is avoidance, right? We're not going to do the thing that anxiety doesn't want us to do. We're not going to go out to that lunch with that colleague that we don't have that great of a relationship with, because that seems scary. So anxiety just says, make up an excuse. They don't feel good and we should reschedule. So anxiety loves avoidance. So just to recap, anxiety absolutely wants us to keep talking about it, wants us to think about it. Like I said, it's very vain. It wants all the attention. It wants reassurance. It loves certainty, and it wants us to avoid. So those are things that we do that keep anxiety around longer. So now, the second part of the presentation, which I kind of think is the fun part, is now we're going to explore some skills. I think it's important to have some of the background of what anxiety is, how it presents, how can we recognize it, but also what can we do to have a better relationship with it? Because the truth is, we do need it to survive, and it's not going anywhere, right? So we gotta try and, I guess, have a better relationship with it. So the first part is compassion. The second part is, how can I use some of these skills to better coexist with it? Okay, so I picked a couple of my favorite skills that I use with clients. And this is just a little bit of an overview of what this is going to look like. I'm going to talk just kind of briefly about the power of breath. I'm also going to explain the concept of diffusion. We're going to explore some grounding skills, some soothers, and then finally we're going to end with a guided progressive muscle relaxation practice together. Okay. Does anybody have any questions right now, more about the information side before I do jump into the skills? Okay, we can certainly circle back to questions, but I just wanted to give you the space for that. Alrighty, so let's start out with breath. Okay, so breath is such a powerful thing. And something that I actually learned not that long ago was the power of a long exhale. So we think about taking a deep breath in, how calming that feels, and it is calming, but the powerful part is the exhale, because that's the thing that is linked to our parasympathetic nervous system. And that's what, signals to our brain, okay, relax. We can turn off the alarm system. So I really strongly encourage, when you hear, okay, take a deep breath, try and focusing on the exhale, because that's where the power is. So even increasing the exhale to about 6 seconds, okay? There's another thing that's called belly breathing. And I remember when I had this kind of aha moment of, oh my goodness, I've been doing the deep breath the wrong way for my whole life. So I thought that we're supposed to do chest breathing, right? You imagine taking a deep breath, your chest comes out, feels good. But in fact, breath needs to reach all the way down into our belly. So how you can kind of put this into practice is you place one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly. And I would say that this is where I feel you're really connecting to your humanness, is these two spots of your body. Of course, your mind, but these two places as well. So with belly breathing, what we're going to try and do is not move our chest at all, actually. All of the air is actually going to get deep into our belly and expand our belly. So when you breathe in, your belly's going to, have all the air reach into it. Okay, so it expanded. And then when I breathe out, it kind of comes back in. So if you're doing the belly breathing, like I said, chest is staying still for the most part. It's the belly that's moving in on the inhale, out on the exhale. I think there's something to, like I said, just in connecting with these two spots on your body as well, it can be kind of calming. So just trying to keep that in mind. Paced breathing can also be a really helpful skill as well. Something too, like it's rhythmic if we count with our breath. So I have found that I personally like this progression where it's like you're breathing in for 4 seconds, you're holding it for 5, and you're exhaling for 6. So there's that 6 again. And that's the longest part, right? So let's actually try this right now together. You can feel free. So, if you want to try the belly breathing, or if you just want to sit like peacefully in your chair, totally great. But let's just try breathing in for a count of 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's hold it for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale through your mouth for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, take just a couple of normal breaths. Let's try that again. Okay, so we're going to breathe in through your nose, hold it, exhale through your mouth if that feels comfortable. So we're going to breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to hold it for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I love this one. I think it's kind of easy to remember too, the 4, 5, 6. The paced breathing is a really helpful way to just like reconnect back to ourselves, to get back in touch with a way to calm down our body in a really quick way. It's like I said, exhaling is the quickest way to turn off our fight or flight response. The fastest way, delivers that message to your brain. We are not in danger. We gotta calm down. Okay, so you can practice doing that paced breathing a couple of times, and then giving yourself like moments to do that normal breathing, and then circling back to the paced breathing. So a really good one when we're experiencing like feelings of just being keyed up on or on edge because of anxiety.
Do you know why you would hold it for 5 seconds?
Yeah, I think it's just to kind of have more of like a stronger exhale, and to just kind of like the breathing in, not as important, but the holding, I think it just makes for a more like powerful exhale. Just hold it for a little bit longer. Okay. Alrighty, so I do want to move to a skill that's called diffusion. And this is more of a cognitive based skill, meaning that we're not like using our body so much, we're more so trying to reframe our thinking. So diffusion comes from a clinical modality that's called acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT for short. This is like what all of the therapists at Green Door Therapy love is acceptance and commitment therapy. It has really solid like skills that you can take away from it. So I think that for me, this was a really eye-opening modality of like trying to reimagine a relationship with anxiety, because what I notice is like we become fused with our thoughts, right? We believe that like our thoughts are the truth. They sound so convincing in our minds. So diffusion is a skill that's used to detach, to get some distance or separate ourselves from our thoughts and our emotions. Like I said, this does come from acceptance and commitment therapy. But essentially, it's just helping us try and change the way we interact with our thoughts and foster some of that like compassion that we do need with our anxiety. So this is like something I often say to clients, like, you are not your thoughts. Say it again, you are not your thoughts. Just because you have a thought does not mean it is true, does not mean it's accurate, and it doesn't mean that you're a bad person for having the thought in the first place. So I think I just, we sometimes just need that reminder that thoughts are just thoughts, right? They're like words or they're images that come into our minds, but that's all that they are. It's like how we respond to them and what we choose to give meaning to. So diffusion really helped me to understand that like I can try and unhook myself from my thinking. I'm just trying to create some space between me and my thoughts. So I do want to kind of share just what that looks like in practice. So, for example, let's use this in the context of like, maybe we're having anxiety in a social setting, okay? So let's say that I'm overthinking or I'm overanalyzing how a new person that I just met is thinking of me, right? So my brain is telling me, or I'm having this, like, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they think I am so weird and so awkward, right? That's what my brain is telling me. So we don't hear it as like, we don't hear it as like, I'm having a thought that. We hear it as, Olivia, you are so weird and so awkward. And it just like circles around in our head over and over again, right? So what diffusion like could help us do is actually using the phrase like, I'm having the thought that I'm awkward or I'm weird in this interaction. Do you hear the difference between the two? So one is I'm awkward and uncomfortable in the social situation versus I'm having the thought that I'm awkward or weird in a social situation. So it takes like the fuel out of anxiety right there. And same with like the next line too. My brain is telling me the story that I'm weird and awkward in social settings versus I'm weird and awkward in social settings. Just a pretty big difference between the two. So this is something I've really integrated into my own life, is calling out that it's a thought rather than it's a truth. Because our thoughts do sound so convincing that we need to call it out that that's just a thought. That's all that it is. And that's just the story that my brain is telling me. And you'll start noticing that there's a lot of stories your brain tells you. And it often tells you the same stories on repeat, right? So maybe I hear the I'm awkward and I'm weird. I hear that one a lot in my brain, right? So it can just, you start noticing the different stories and the commonality and that it keeps coming back over and over. Another way is to just try and think of the thought like you sing it to the tune of a song, like Happy Birthday. The thought doesn't sound as intimidating if we give it a little bit of a tune, right? Like to Happy Birthday. So again, it's just ways to create space between the thought and us. In a similar way, maybe you could even imagine seeing the thought like playing on a screen in front of you, right? So imagine that your thought is like being typed right here and seeing it in front of you. So that's just some of like, that's a very basic overview of what diffusion is, but I truly do think this is one of the most helpful cognitive skills because it's not dismissing a thought. It's not you trying to completely reframe the thought into something that doesn't seem believable. It's you acknowledging that like, okay, yeah, like I'm having that thought and that's the story my brain's telling me right now. But yeah, if you could take anything away from this presentation, reminding yourself that you are a lot more than your thoughts. It's what you choose to give value to. Okay. So we kind of did a cognitive skill there. Now I do want to come back to a grounding skill. So with anxiety, we often are feeling the uncomfortable sensations in our body physiologically, right? And that is because of the fight or flight response. So maybe you experience that as like a bellyache, maybe it's like the shakiness, maybe you just like truly feel unsafe in your own body. So grounding techniques help control like symptoms by turning the attention away from your thoughts, memories, and worries, and bringing you back to the present moment, to your surroundings. So essentially, that like we can think of grounding as getting out of your body and getting into your surroundings. Has anyone here heard of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? Is anyone familiar with that? Trace. Okay. Okay, well, lovely. Then I have a new one to teach you all. Okay, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a technique that you would use to try and take in the details of your surroundings using each of your senses. So trying to notice the small details that your mind would usually tune out, like distant sounds or the texture of ordinary objects. So this is a easy one because like you can remember 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? So first is 5 things that you see. So let's actually all try this together. And of course you can, just take this in as you're looking around the room, but try and look for like small details that maybe you wouldn't have noticed even before. So patterns on the ceiling or on the carpet. Maybe it's the way like the light reflects off of the surface, or like an object you never noticed before. So I added a picture of like the texture of a tree that I thought was like, wow, that is so cool. Or like looking up at the sky and seeing like beautiful clouds. Okay, the next is 4 things that you can touch. So again, feel free to try this right now. So notice the sensation even on your own clothing, on your body. If we were outside, maybe the sun on your skin. Maybe it's the feeling of the chair that you're sitting in. Try and like pick up an object and really like feel like the weight, the texture, the physical qualities. Yeah, so take a few moments to try and find a couple of things to try and touch. Okay. The next is 3 things that you can hear. So try paying attention to special attention to the sounds your mind typically tunes out. So like, I don't see a clock in here, but like the ticking of a clock. Oh, thank you. There is one. Okay, the ticking of a clock. Or the distant sounds of traffic. Quiet, you can kind of hear some voices out there.
Moving in a chair.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay. And then next are, what are 2 things that you can smell? So trying to notice smells in the air around you. Maybe it's like air freshener, again, outside. It's a little easier to do this one, that freshly mowed grass. You can look around for something that has a scent, like a flower or a candle. I also suggest, I think sometimes you can even envision a smell that like brings you like happiness. Like you can envision like what fresh baked cookies smell like. And then the last one is, what is one thing that you can taste? So oftentimes I do suggest to clients like have some mint gum nearby you. Or like a small candy, even a snack that you enjoy. Pop something in your mouth and just focus your attention closely on the flavors. Okay. All right, so that is what 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is. Again, kind of an easy one to turn to because we're always like, there's always something in our surroundings. We just happen to not really give it that much attention. So slowing down and trying to use our senses. Okay, so in staying with this topic a little bit more, I'm gonna try and make this bigger. Oops. Okay. I'll read them aloud because I know that's small. But I also like to help clients explore what their own self-soothers can be. So I thought, oh my goodness, I thought it could be helpful this evening if each of you brainstormed your own soothers using your 5 senses. So, you know, like if you have a notebook or even if you have your phone and you want to use like your notes app, feel free to take that out. But this part is just like brainstorming for yourself. I want you to think about truly things that would be applicable to you that you could envision yourself doing. So like I said, I'll read these out loud because I know it's a little bit small to see. So first we're going to be in the category of vision. Oh, and I should say, I pulled this document from the Dialectical Behavioral Therapy Handbook. DBT is the shorthand name. Remember, I just referred to a modality called ACT, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. So DBT is like cousins with ACT. So I pulled this from that handbook. Okay, so some of the examples are here for vision are looking at the stars, looking at pictures you like in a book. I've kind of adapted this to saying like, what about just like looking at pictures on your cell phone that you like? We usually take pictures of memories that bring us joy, right? So pull out your phone and looking at different pictures. Maybe you're gonna buy a flower to have in your home. Or lighting a candle and watching the flame. This example is setting a pretty place at the table, maybe using your best things. I like this one, going people watching or window shopping, potentially going to a museum. Looking at nature around you. I do think that when we are out in nature, it does help us connect with our senses in a different way than just being inside. Absolutely, you can do it indoors. I just think it kind of hits differently when you're outside. So looking at the nature around you. Walking in a pretty part of town. Maybe you're going to take some time to look at the sunrise or a sunset. Taking a walk through a park or taking a scenic hike. So those are just a few ideas with vision. But feel free right now to take a couple of moments to think about what are some aesthetically pleasing things that you like looking at that can be calming to you. Okay. So next, let's think about sound, hearing. What can be some self-soothers for you? Do you enjoy listening to soothing or invigorating music? Could you try paying attention more to the sounds of nature? I love the sounds of birds chirping, and it's so nice in spring to finally hear them again. Maybe it's like hearing the leaves rustling. Even paying attention to the sounds of traffic. Singing your favorite song. Learning to play an instrument or playing an instrument. Maybe you're going to make a playlist on Spotify and you're going to listen to your favorite songs. Or maybe you're going to try and be mindful of any sounds that come your way, letting them go in one ear and out the other. Or you could just listen to the radio. Another one that I think can be kind of a cool one for sound is maybe it's listening to a voicemail of somebody that's left you like a sweet message. A family member, a friend, just hearing the sound of their voice. Maybe that's a soother. Alrighty. Now we're gonna transition into thinking about what some soothers could be for smell. So potentially, we could try using like a calming soap or shampoo or lotion. I have this lavender roll-on that I keep in my bag, and I think it's a really calming scent that I like sometimes just occasionally smelling, and it just, you know, reminds me of, okay, this is a comforting smell. Lighting a scented candle or burning incense. Maybe if you're a coffee drinker, opening a package of coffee and inhaling the aroma. Putting eucalyptus in a bowl, boiling cinnamon or making cookies or popcorn, smelling some flowers. Again, here's the nature one, walking in a wooded area and mindfully breathing in the fresh smells of nature. Or just even open up the window of your car when you're driving and just try and smell the air. There's so many that we can think of with smell. Just think about what are some of your favorite scents, and if they're tied to any memories, as smell and memory is very strongly connected. Okay, our last one. Oh, nope, just kidding. We got taste and touch still. Alrighty, so taste. Some ideas could be eating some of your favorite foods, drinking a soothing drink like an herbal tea, a latte, or a smoothie, treating yourself to a dessert. I like this idea, like eating a favorite childhood food, like macaroni and cheese, or something that just reminds you of something you liked when you were a kid. Sampling flavors at an ice cream store, sucking on a piece of peppermint candy or gum, and then getting like a little bit of special food you don't typically spend the money on. Really tasting the food you eat, eating one thing at a time, being in the moment with the flavor. Alrighty, last one is the area of touch. What can be some soothing things that may help alleviate anxiety with touch? So taking a long, hot bath or shower can be really soothing. If any of you are animal lovers, petting or snuggling your animal, it's a huge one. Having a massage, or even just soaking your feet in a warm tub. I like this one too, putting like a lotion on your whole body. I think that is an act of compassion even. It's very small, but it's you doing something for your body. Putting a cold compress on your forehead. I think this one's really important too, on a day when you are feeling more anxious, being really mindful of even the clothing that you're putting on. Choose something that doesn't feel restrictive, something that feels snuggly or safe. Hugs are great as well with a trusted person. Wrapping yourself up in a blanket. Just trying to notice touch that is soothing. But our senses are so powerful, and anxiety takes us out of the moment often. It's bringing us to the future, worries, or we're ruminating about the past. And it often takes us out of the moment. So grounding is so powerful because it does bring you to the right here, the right now, right? It's helping us be more present and really engaging our senses. So you can soothe yourself with your senses. You can also ground yourself with your senses. Alrighty. So we're gonna end this evening with a progressive muscle relaxation. So this is an exercise that does reduce stress and anxiety in your body by having you slowly tense and then relax each muscle. And this exercise can provide an immediate feeling of relaxation. And of course, with any skill, it's going to get easier the more you practice. But during this exercise, each muscle should be tensed, but not to the point of strain. Okay, so if you have any injuries or pain, please skip those affected areas. Just try and pay special attention to the feeling of releasing tension in each muscle and the resulting feeling of relaxation. Alrighty. So feel free to just sit back in a comfortable position. If you're comfortable doing so, feel free to shut your eyes. And begin by taking a deep breath and notice the feeling of air filling your lungs and your belly. Hold your breath for a few seconds. Release the breath slowly and let the tension leave your body. Take in another deep breath and hold it. And then slowly release the air. Even slower now. Take another breath. Fill your lungs and your belly and hold the air. Slowly release the breath and imagine the feeling of tension leaving your body. Now begin to move your attention to your feet. Begin to tense your feet by curling your toes and the arch of your foot. Hold on to that tension and notice what it feels like. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release the tension in your foot. Notice the new feeling of relaxation. Take a deep breath in and exhale out. Next, begin to focus on your lower legs. You can try tensing the muscles in your calves. Hold them tightly and pay attention to the feeling of tension. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release. Release the tension from your lower legs. Notice the feeling of relaxation. And remember to continue taking deep breaths. Inhale in. Hold. Exhale out. Next, we're going to tense the muscles of your upper leg. You can do this by tightly squeezing your thighs together. Again, make sure you feel the tenseness without going to the point of strain. Hold that for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Feel the tension leave your muscles. Notice how different it feels from the sensation of tension. Take a deep breath in. Hold it. Exhale out. Begin to tense your stomach and your chest. You can do this by sucking your stomach in, by clenching it. Squeeze harder. Hold that tension just a little bit longer. For 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release that tension. Allow your body to go limp. Let yourself notice the feeling of relaxation. Acknowledge how different it feels from the feeling of tension. Continue taking deep breaths. Breathe in slowly Notice the air fill your lungs, your belly. Hold it. Release the air slowly. Pushing out that tension. Feeling it leave in your body. Next, we're going to tense the muscles in your back by bringing your shoulders together. Try holding them tightly. Tense as hard as you can, but without going to the point of strain. Keep holding. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release the tension from your back. Feel the tension slowly leaving your body and the new feeling of relaxation in its place. Really try and hone in on the fact that your body feels so different when you allow it to relax. Next, we're going to tense your arms all the way from your hands to your shoulders. You do this by making a fist, squeezing all the way up your arm. Try holding that for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release the tension from your arms and your shoulders. Notice the feeling of relaxation in your fingers, in your hands, your arms, and your shoulders. Notice how your arms feel limp and at ease. Next, we're going to move up to your neck and your head. Try tensing your face and your neck by distorting the muscles around your eyes and your mouth. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release. Release the tension. And acknowledge the new feeling of relaxation in its place. Take a deep breath in. Hold. Exhale out. Finally, tense your entire body. Try tensing your feet, your legs, your stomach, your chest, your head, and your neck. Tense harder without the point of straining. Hold the tension for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now release. Allow your whole body to go limp. Pay attention to the feeling of relaxation and how different it is from the feeling of tension. Begin to wake up your body by slowly moving your muscles, adjusting your arms and your legs, stretching your muscles if that feels good. Taking a deep breath. And opening your eyes when you're ready. So this is a scale that is one of my favorites. I do think it's so helpful because you can feel an immediate sense of relaxation and you're also controlling the tension. Anxiety is usually the thing that's causing the tension in our body, but we're the one who's causing it and then letting it go. And I do think, you don't have to have, it does help, of course, to have somebody read a script, but all you need to focus on is like starting from your feet and moving up your body. You can do this one in social settings as well. If you're feeling really anxious, try squeezing your hands, letting it go. Making a fist, letting it go. You're gonna immediately feel that tension being let go of. Same with your feet. Nobody would see you curling your toes in your shoe, right? So create that tension, let it go. And remember to continue like deep breathing with this one. Okay, so just as a bit of a review, some skills that are incredibly helpful in working to better manage or coexist with our anxiety. So it's always going to be there, right? And for some of us, it's just going to be a lifelong relationship. So bringing in compassion and trying to use these skills that can help us to better coexist. So we explored the power of breath. We practiced the cognitive skill of trying to unhook ourselves from our thoughts, grounding ourselves with our senses, and using soothers, and finally the progressive muscle relaxation. So when I say reimagining the relationship with anxiety, we got to remind ourselves we can't stop being anxious because it is a survival technique and it is there to keep us alive. But we can change the way that we interact with our anxiety and our anxious thoughts. So try thanking your brain for protecting you and continue exploring ways to help turn off that alarm system. All right, these are some of the sources that I used. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Any questions for Olivia? Thank you, Olivia. That was really good information.
Then you do my next thing, catching out of that for me.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you something?
Yes, please.
Okay, you know, I agree that you could have thoughts, but I mean, if you really perceive something and you perceive it's accurate and it's causing you anxiety, and I know you say, you know, change your thinking of that thought, right?
Sure.
But at the same time, how can you deny what you feel is a truth? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That is causing you anxiety.
Sure.
So sometimes I grapple with that
Mhm.
because, you know, it's like I don't want to just assume that, you know, it's not really actually happening or something, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right, like we are the ones who determine like what we want to give attention to certain thoughts and the accuracy of them. But I think when I say like the diffusion, it's reminding, you know, that some thoughts aren't accurate. It doesn't necessarily mean that all of them aren't, but it's what we choose to give the acknowledgement to. So there are, you're right, some thoughts that are true and accurate and others that are just unhelpful. So it's trying to kind of, you know, I guess decipher through the ones that we want to continue following down the rabbit hole and also taking a step back and acknowledging maybe it's not entirely helpful for me to do that. Maybe this thought is actually my perception of the situation. Maybe it's not grounded in fact or logic. And that's where diffusion can be helpful. Because you're right, there are thoughts that are totally accurate and true, and we don't have to dismiss all of them. But I think it's exploring when do they become so unhelpful that we keep circling around the rabbit hole of the thought. Does that make sense?
But sometimes you can't really, you know, cipher all that in the brief, you know, second
Sure.
that you perceive something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's,
Absolutely.
but I guess maybe you just have to not let it get to you. I don't know.
It's so easy, just.
Yeah.
I think it is very helpful for us, like when I talk about like diffusion, I always think it's really helpful to acknowledge the legitimacy of the thought and be like, yeah, like I'm having this thought that sounds so real and so true in my mind. And you know, how far do I want to continue following this thought? How much more time or energy do I want to give it? You know, if it's one I keep getting like stuck on, maybe that's one I have to process a little bit more and explore why I do keep getting stuck on it, right? And that can be an indicator that maybe, you know, when I said that sometimes we can explore there's a cause for our anxiety, maybe that's where we need help, like unpacking that thought. But for example, I do work with individuals, you know, especially with OCD, I think diffusion can be very helpful because, you know, you may have a thought that, you know, your brain is telling you to do something you don't really want to do. And so reminding yourself there with diffusion, like you are not your thoughts. You are a lot more than your thoughts. Just because you're having this thought doesn't necessarily mean it's 100% true, or you're a bad person for having that thought.
Thank you all very much for coming. Thank you, Olivia. It was
Thank you.
very informative.